Hey everybody, welcome to Monster Monday for August 17th, 2020. I'm your host, DM Gallibond. All right, everybody, welcome to Monster Monday. And today we are going to be talking about Aphemia. Aphemia is a proper name for a monster in D&D. It's actually a harpy, a Nyx-born harpy that comes out of the Mythic Odysseys of Theros sourcebook. This is a really interesting opportunity, and I realized during the week that last week I kind of missed an opportunity talking about another named monster. So we're also going to talk about harpies in general in this episode. So using Aphemia as the example, we're then going to expand out and look at other harpies through the history of D&D. So let's go ahead and get on with the show. All right. Aphemia is, like I said, a Nyx-born creature from the Mythic Odysseys of Theros sourcebook. Now, Nyx is the cosmic plane where powers of potentiality and belief hold sway. Thus, Nyx-born creatures are said to rise out of dreams or nightmares. One look at her face, you can tell what kind of dream this gal comes from. God, that's a face only a mother could love. And even then, I don't know. Like other harpies, Aphemia is a killer and a scavenger. She feeds on unwary travelers and corpses alike. And unlike other harpies, her summoning song doesn't lure travelers to their doom. It lures the dead out of their graves, and then she leads the dead to assault the living. So she is a really, really, really terrible example of a harpy. All right. So the lore about her is that Aphemia prowls the marshy wastes around the necropolis of Asphodel. Her shrill songs enthrall the necropolis's undead inhabitants, which she leads on raids to waylay unsuspecting travelers and settlements. And that's straight out of the Mythic Odysseys of Theros sourcebook. That's how they describe her. Now you notice in her image that they have that part of her form appears to fade away and reflect the stars of the cosmos, and that is a feature of Nyx-born creatures in this source book. It's kind of a really interesting cosmology and everything that they have, and it's really kind of a cool, a cool way uh, you can look at playing in a setting that is very different than a lot of other D&D settings. All right, now if we look at harpies as a class of creatures, harpies are what you call monstrosities. And monstrosities are monsters in the strictest sense, not ordinary, not truly natural, and almost never benign. Harpies certainly fall in that category. Some of the results of magical experiments gone awry, and others are the products of terrible curses. Harpies? Yeah, I mean, I guess in lore, in mythology, Greek mythology, I guess they were the product of a curse. But I don't actually recall if there's any lore out of D&D that says exactly how harpies formed. It's just they're just there. They're just harpies. All right. Now, um Aphemia is specifically from the marshy wastes around the necropolis of Asphodel, as we've heard. But harpies, as a creature type, usually inhabit several different areas. Coastal areas, which can be marshy, like Asphodel. Then they can also be in forests and hills and mountains as well. Flavor features. Well, non-mechanical features of the monster. Aphemia terrifies the living with her discordant, shrill songs. She delights in seeing the horror and fear build in the eyes of her prey as she slowly leads her inescapable undead followers to overrun, slaughter, and destroy them. Um, she's just she not only enjoys the kill, but she enjoys uh, letting people know that they're going to die. That's part of the fun for her. Now this stat block here is from Aphemia herself, and when we look at harpies in general, we'll compare her stats with the normal harpy stats. So Aphemia is a CR5 monster, armor class 15, natural armor, 52 hit points or 88 plus 16. Walks 20 feet, flies 50 feet, has pretty much above average stats in most respects. And then she's resists necrotic damage, and she's immune to being charmed or frightened, and she has dark vision out to 120 feet, and she speaks common. She also has legendary resistance twice a day, and legendary resistance means that a creature, when it fails a saving throw, it can choose to succeed on the saving throw instead. And Aphemia is resistant to magic, meaning she has advantage on saving throws against spells and other magic effects. Now her attacks, she's got 2 attacks, one with her bite and one with her claws. Bite attack is +6 for 2d4 plus 3 piercing damage and 13 necrotic damage. And then her claws deal is +6 to hit. Claws deal 2d6 plus 3 slashing damage. So no necrotic damage on the claws, but yes necrotic on the bite. And then she's got some special abilities, which is her discordant song and her grave calling song. Now, the discordant song shrieks a cacophony of magical sounds, and all humanoids within 120 feet. So I think her range is a little bit bigger than other harpies. They need to succeed on a saving throw or be frightened of Aphemia until the song ends. They take 2d6 psychic damage at the start of the turn while Aphemia is singing, and they can repeat the saving throw at the end of each of their turns, ending the effect. And if they're successful, the creature is immune to the discordant song for the next 24 hours. And Aphemia must take a bonus action on her subsequent turns to continue singing. She can stop singing at any time, and the song ends if Aphemia is incapacitated or dies. Grave calling song. With this one, Aphemia intones a low growling magical melody. Every undead within 300 feet must succeed on a DC 14 Wisdom save or fall under her control until the song ends. So all undead within 300 feet. That's just a massive, you can fit a lot of undead in 300 in a 300-foot radius, because basically that's what you're talking about. 300 feet all the way around her. So for an entire football field, in every direction around her, all of those undead will move with her, and she can control them. And she mentally commands the undead as part of the same bonus action. So she's got to use a bonus action to sing on subsequent turns, and she can command it with the singing. And again, song ends if she's incapacitated or dies. So yeah, she's made very much tougher by her ability to control undead and by her proximity to so many undead that she is able to control. So that's what makes Aphemia herself really, really, really dangerous. Okay, now let's go and let's take a look at harpies through the history of D&D. Now I put up a little slide here, but I decided that I want to do this a little bit of a different way today. What I want to do instead is I want to actually go to the source books and look at the source books and compare what the harpies are like edition by edition. And then we will finish off by comparing Aphemia to normal harpies in 5e. So, way back in original D&D, harpies have been around ever since the beginning. They were armor class 7, and if you followed this show for a while, you know that back in the old editions, the armor class was backwards. So the lower the armor class, the better. The higher the armor class, the worse. 7 basically was the same armor class you got from wearing leather armor back in the day. Hit dice, 3 and an asterisk. That meant that she was a 3-hit die monster with some special abilities. So she's a little bit tougher than your average 3-hit die monster. Fly 60 or move 60 feet, and you see the 60 and 20. That's 60 feet out of combat, 20 feet in combat, and then fly 150 feet out of combat or 50 feet in combat. And back in the original edition, harpies got 3 attacks plus their song. So the claws were 1d4, 1d4, and she could use a weapon, which was 1d6. Usually, most harpies would use something like a club, and they were kind of strong, so they would get a little bit more damage out of it than a lot of creatures. Now you notice alignment says chaotic. Well, that's because back in original D&D, they were so poor. Oh, okay, you guys disappoint me. They were so poor. How poor were they? They're so poor that they could only afford 3 alignments. You had lawful, neutral, and chaotic. You did not have that 9-way axis of law and good and evil. That had not come into play yet. They just had the axis of law, so lawful, neutral, and chaotic. And then there's now you notice that they were very sparse on the mechanics in these days. So you get a description of the monster, and it says they can sing with enchanting, mesmerizing voices. They lure creatures to them to be killed and devoured. Any creature hearing the harpy songs doesn't tell you how far away you have to be to hear the song, but DM says you hear the song, you hear the song. Any creature hearing the harpy songs must make a saving throw versus spells or be charmed. Victim makes a saving throw against a song of a group of harpies. Victim will not be affected by any of their songs during the encounter. Harpies typically make and then it talks about where they make their nests, and it talks about the load that they can carry when they're flying. And you'll see the load is 1,000 coins. What do you mean 1,000 coins? Well, they measured all weight in coins. 10 coins weighed a pound, so 1,000 coins is 100 pounds. Oh, and also check out a load of this. You would go on strike as a player in 5e D&D if your DM only gave you 50 experience points for killing a 3-hit die monster. or a CR3 monster is basically what that equates to in modern D&D. Um, that's because they were very stingy on XP, and they expected you to earn XP from the treasure that you got. So every gold piece of treasure you got equated to an experience point back in those days. All right, so let's go to advanced D&D. Now, advanced D&D, not a whole lot changes. Still armor class 7, same movement, uh, same hit dice, same attacks, except the damage for attack. They nerfed uh, the claw attacks a little bit. Instead of 1d4, they're now 1d3. And then they still have their song, and by now we're in chaotic evil. They're also not very intelligent. They're low intelligence creatures. So they emit sweet sounding calls. Any creature hearing these calls will proceed toward the harpies unless they save versus magic. Yes, that's right. They went through a whole lot of different trial and error before they figured out what they wanted saving throws to be. So every edition, the saving throws changed for the first 2 or 3 editions of the game. Yeah. All right. So now we go to second edition D&D. And now the stat blocks are starting to get a little more organized. So the organization of harpies, you call a group of harpies a flock of harpies. They're carnivorous. It said their intelligence is low. Well, what low means is in the 5 to 7 range on a scale of 3 to 18. Still armor class 7. Same movement. But now notice there's 7 hit die monsters instead of 3 hit die monsters. And then the same damage as the AD&D or first edition size, medium. They're 6 feet tall. Morale. Well, morale was a mechanic in early days. In original D&D, you had to roll a D or 2d6 and meet or exceed the number for the monster to keep fighting. Otherwise, it would surrender or run away or whatever. As they got into later editions and we're still using morale, they changed that 2d6 to a d20. So the morale changed. And now you have a CR7, a 7 hit die monster. Guess what? It's only worth 975 hit experience points. Okay, so again, you would revolt. All right, and you have a nice big stat block or a nice big information about the song here. All humans and demi-humans, elves are resistant to the charm. Saving throw versus spells. So you have to make your save versus spells. It was saving throw versus magic in the AD&D, and now it's saving throw versus spells in second edition. Right, now we come to third edition and 3.5, and this is kind of where things really started to get more in general. And, don't you just love the artwork that they have for these harpies? Every edition they get worse and worse and worse looking. Okay, more malignant and wretched creature than the harpy is difficult to imagine. A harpy's coal-black eyes clearly affect its evil soul to do wicked, as do the wicked talons on its knotty fingers. And then harpies are 7 hit die monsters. and they have an initiative score. Their armor class is 13 now, which now you can see they're getting into the modern concept of armor class, where the higher the armor class, the better. Base attack and grapple is +7. Their full attack rating is a club as a weapon and the 2 claws. Once again, 1d6 for the club damage and 1d3 for the claws each. They have the captivating song. They are CR4 monsters. So they've now come up with a challenge rating here. And yeah, and they now we have a range. Harpy sayings, all creatures other than harpies within a 300-foot spread must succeed on a DC 16 will save or become captivated. So we would say a wisdom save in 5e, but they classified your mental defenses as will saves in 3rd edition and in 4th edition. Okay, and speaking of 4th edition, harpies are there too. So a harpy is a level 6 controller worth 250 experience points. They 71 hit points, a bloodied value of 35, armor class of 20, fortitude defense 17, reflex 17, will 19. Yes, every attack could hit one of 4 defenses in 4E, and you had to know the values of all 4 defenses for not only your character, but all the monsters you were fighting. Resistance to thunder, speed of 6, fly speed of 8. 6, that just means the number of 5-foot squares it can move, so 30 feet, flight speed of 40 feet. Plus 11 to the attack, 1d8 plus 2 damage with the claws, and notice that it doesn't have other attacks. It just has its claw attack. It doesn't get weapon attacks in this edition. Alluring Song, standard, sustain at will, and Deadly Screech, standard, recharge on a 5 or a 6. And that Deadly Screech deals thunder damage. And again, there's saving throws for all of those. And then there's a special Bloodfire Harpy. That's a little bit tougher. Okay, now we've already looked at Aphemia, but just to recap, she's armor class 15, 52 hit points, and she's a CR5. And if we look at regular harpies, they're armor class 11, so they're not as hard to hit. They are a challenge rating of 1, so they're significantly less difficult to fight against. And they're not as fast, and they definitely don't have the song that will enthrall the undead. They just use a luring song. And within 300 feet of the harpy, so again, same radius as Aphemia's calling undead, but in this case, she's luring, harpies are luring the living to them, and a DC 11 saving throw, so a little bit easier saving throw than Aphemia requires. And again, that's a wisdom save. And you're charmed. So, basically she does the woo-woo song, gets you under her spell, and then she turns into Fat Bastard and says, get into my belly. So that's for those of you who haven't watched the Austin Powers films. you need to go consume that cultural touchstone as soon as humanly possible. All right, so let's jump back into our uh, other discussion from the normal show. Hopefully you guys like that diversion going into the actual source books and looking at the monsters. Let me know in the comments or in the chat if you like that variation over what we normally do when we're looking at the harpies through the ages. Okay, so how might you use Aphemia, or probably more likely harpies in general, in a campaign? They can be a terrifying creature to throw at a low level party. So, like, if you're thinking like a level 1 adventure or something like that, where maybe there's people disappearing near some old ruins, and their ability to to charm enemies with their song and lure them close for the killing attack can be a huge challenge. But now, if you ramp that adventure up a little bit, and your adventurers are a little bit higher, you couldn't you it would be really hard to throw tier 1 adventurers at Aphemia, um, even as the boss monster, because thinking of her in her natural habitat, just imagine all of the skeletons and all of the zombies and all of the wights and the ghouls that she could have at her command, and just like throw them wave after wave after wave at the party. So, uh, and with a range of 300 feet to put them under her control, that is a further distance than most spells and most weapons can reach. So your party would have to come up with something pretty interesting in order to be able to defeat her uh, if she was the boss. So probably make it, probably make her a boss for a, you know, fifth, sixth, maybe even a seventh level party, just because she can have all of those undead to just throw at the party and kind of make them use up some of their resources before she goes in for the kill. That would be kind of a way that you could use her. Then how could you reskin harpies? There's one brilliant reskinning of harpies that I have seen, and it was in a 4th edition game that they played all the way up to level cap, or all the way up to, I think it was 29th level. All the PCs were 29th level when their campaign ended. But they played all the way up, and somewhere in the middle, they wound up running into, um, they wound up going to the Astral Sea. And the storyline was that there were monsters from the lunar plane that were spilling into all of the adjacent planes to the natural world and attacking things. And these were all monsters that had been created by the lunar gods. And the lunar gods are crazy. And so this one grotesque alien looked like a kind of a faceless, hairless humanoid with kind of gray skin. But when it would get close to its enemies, the skin on its head would peel back like a banana peel in sections, and it would reveal teeth on the inside of these things, and it would emit this warble that would charm people and draw them into it, and then it would just attack them with those horrible um, face flaps that it has. And it's like everybody, uh, all the players in that campaign just ooh, ah. when the DM was describing these creatures. And later on, he said, "Oh yeah, well that's just a harpy reskinned." And he took the stat block of the harpy and gave it to this creature instead, and gave it a new skin. So that's one way you could reskin a harpy. Now you could also turn that charming song into something else. You could maybe make it like a song of madness, where they everybody that hears it could be affected by the rules of temporary madness. And so that means, you get to roll randomly for everybody. Some of them may turn around and start attacking their allies. Some of them may just run away or, you know, throw their hands over their head and sob. You could do a lot of different things with that effect of that song. Uh, don't think if when you're wanting to reskin a monster like a harpy that has a special attack like that, don't think that you're locked into using the same effect of a charm. Realize that you can branch out from that, and any of the different condition effects that you can land on other creatures, you could give to that creature. Yeah, as long as it's within reason. When it's something that's a CR1 harpy, you can't like make it the breath of a adult dragon or something like that. That would just be way too. That would be crazy. But as long as you're looking at other kinds of effects that are in line with what CR1 monsters are able to do, then you're free to just sort of let your imagination run wild of what that special attack might be. All right. I'm looking at the chat and I don't see any questions. If you do have any questions on harpies or on Aphemia in general, go ahead, throw it in the chat while I do the wrap up. I'll check the chat again and see if there's anything we need to go back and cover. All right. This has been Monster Monday for August 17th, 2020. We have been talking about Aphemia and harpies in general. I've been your host, DM Gallibond. Please remember that you can stop by, and I still have to update that stupid slide. Okay, I'm going to do that as soon as I finish recording tonight. Drop by on Sundays on my Twitch channel at 2 p.m., not 2:30 p.m., for the Walker of Waterdeep. Speaking of reskinned monsters, boy howdy, at the end of last session, they ran into a huge undead. It's called a Skag Goliath, which is out of the Innistrad block from Magic the Gathering. And, a few months from now, when I get around to doing all of the monsters from that I used out of Innistrad, I'll tell you what I reskinned that as, what the core stat block from D&D was. And they're going to have to fight that thing next week, and I don't think they're going to like it. Earlier in the session, they ran into a huge marsh worm, something called a Molegraph monstrosity, which is also out of the Innistrad block, and they succeeded in not having to fight it because they made an ingenious use of first the banishment spell to give them time to think about what they wanted to do. And then when it came back, they used the polymorph spell, which allowed them to turn it into something harmless for an hour. And the harmless thing they turned it into was a turtle, and they threw it in a nearby river. And that meant that the river would carry it down current for an hour before it would turn back into into its normal self. And this thing is so stupid. I mean, it would have no idea where the hell the where the hell it was attacking that. It would just go and attack whatever was nearest to it at that point. But the stat block that I used from D&D for the Moldgraph monstrosity was the purple worm, because it's that size, that kind of monster. So that was a CR 15 that they all knew there was going to be a really, really tough fight unless they found some way of dealing with it. Then on Thursday nights at 8 o'clock, it's the right time, but we have moved on from the Dragon of Icespire Peak. We finished that, and we're now working on the Sword Coast Chronicles. And last Thursday, well, I'm not going to tell you what happened. I'm going to make you listen tomorrow to the Tales from the Table, where you'll find out what happened in both of those sessions. All right. Those are over on Twitch, as is the live stream of this show. You can find the archives of everything and all of my other daily D&D short form videos over on YouTube. And you can also find me over on the Patreon. Hey, want to thank you guys over on Twitch here on this platform. We have actually made affiliate, and we keep gaining a few followers every week, and we keep having more and more people during the live stream games that come and watch us play. We're starting to get some more interaction. The players actually sit in the chat most of the time, and they'll interact with you if you want to talk to the players while the game is going on Sunday afternoons and Thursday nights. So we really appreciate that. And now we're going for partner over at Twitch. So if you like what we do here, please, please, please spread the word. Let people know. Have them come out. You can start subscribing. You can start following. And then tell people about the YouTube archives as well. So go over and follow over there. Subscribe. Like the videos. Share them with your friends. And whatnot. Okay, I still don't see any questions, so I'm going to presume that we have said all that there is to say about harpies this evening. Thank you so much for dropping by in the chat, and thank you, future people, for watching the archives. All right, I have been DM Gallibond. Good night, everybody, and just remember, watch out for the monsters under the bed.